Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma here to about Kagurabachi chapter number 105. This chapter is titled Transformation, of course, because we see the whole idea of Yura becomes Akimura and Akimura becomes Yura, and it's not like teleportation like Shiba does, but it is transformation. So crazy and interesting, and honestly, I need to do a transformation or transition into what happened last time in Kagurabachi, because of course, I need to catch up, and blabbing about chapters for a very long time isn't going to make that happen, right? But of course, last time in Kagurabachi chapter number 105, we had this entire chapter really focusing on, like, hey, Chihiro beat Yura. Like, Yura got taken down and Chihiro did it, of course using the Suzaku strategy to go through and practically sort of burn Yura alive. It's not very, like, fun to talk and think about, but that is pretty much what happened at the end of the day. And of course, at the very end of the chapter, the Magatsumi enchanted blade started to lift out of its scabbard a little bit. And Yura also started to lift off of the air while, like, plant vines and everything were growing out of him. And it's not, like, the most fun visual to look at, but hey, we see it here in the beginning of this chapter, of course, 105, titled Transformation. And we start off this chapter with Chihiro pretty much seeing all of this happening, and also Samura coming down to be like, alright, we need to kill this guy quickly. Like, let all of the Shinuchi stuff hunker out pretty much, not have to think about it anymore. We need to take him out. So Chihiro's looking like sweat is running down his face, as Samura is coming down to pretty much being like, I'm going to cut this guy in half, right? And pretty much as this happens, Samura looks up and says, wait a second. He never drew it. Of course, only the sword master himself can draw the Shinuchi. Yet all of my senses are warning me. As of course Samura comes down and plunges the blade into Yura's body once more, and in the process of this ignites the flames of mercy of Suzaku, and just starts to burn Yura up even more, just eradicating that Shinuchi encroachment out of him. And Samura's just thinking, even at this level of firepower, as Yura is still just resisting. As up into the air, Samura decides to go with Yura, as the two of them, like, explode up into the air pretty much and are flying just through the streets of Tokyo, in between all of these various high-rise buildings. And as Samura sort of doing this and his blade is at Yura's neck, he suddenly just feels the presence. And in his mind, he sees none other than Soga Akimura's vision. And this immediately makes Samura very uneasy. He throws Yura off to the side as he just goes and explodes into a building pretty much and crashes through it. And Samura pretty much does the same thing in a building adjacent of the one that he threw Yura into. And as Samura sort of gets in there, he catches his footing and he just looks at Yura, whose body is almost ragdolling down through the building. But his body's like going through and crashing through every single subsequent layer, just going down, pow, 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 crash, crash, pow, just continually falling. And Samura's like, what? No, what is this? The feeling of my flames healing the Shinuchi's encroachment on his body is suddenly gone, even though his body is clearly connected to the Shinuchi. In other words, his connection to the Shinuchi is no longer an abnormality, as he just looks into the building where Yura can no longer be seen. As we cut and see where Yura is, laying down, he's pretty much splatted on the ground here in front of a clothing store in what seems to be like a shopping mall inside of this building. And as Yura is just laying here, it very much reminds me of a scene in Tokyo Revengers. I think if you know what I'm talking about, you will immediately lock on. It is a moment that happens at the end of Season 3 and the end of the Tenjaku arc in the manga of Tokyo Revengers. I don't think that's too spoilery there, but just the same sort of a scene with Yura here laying on the ground. It's honestly a little bit disturbing as we even see his pinky fingers bent back and he doesn't look good. Of course, all of these vines are sprouting out of his body here in the moment, as we get not only the title drop of the chapter, but also the Kagurabachi logo by Takeru Hokuzono, a good mangaka, right? As we get chapter 105, Transformation. As Yura here laying on the ground, pretty much all bloodied and beaten, and he honestly doesn't look like he's alive anymore, we get a panel where he is just falling through nothing almost. And then we get a look at Yura's hand. There's no Hishaku symbol on his right hand anymore. We just saw it on there, but it's no longer here. As we look all the way at the bottom of the Kabanami headquarters, of course, where Akimura is, as we see Akimura just laying on the ground. And we look up, we see Yura laying on the ground in the shopping mall. We see Samura getting ready, looking at everything going on. Oh, Yura's no longer there. Akimura is standing in Yura's clothes where Yura once was. As Samura just begins to think, the Shinichi's invasion is forcing his nervous system to accommodate to its power, culminating in, no, it can't be. As of course, Akimura is here in the moment, and he's wearing Yura's suit, and he just is looking around, and he pretty much picks up the tie and is like, oh, a suit. And Samura hears the voice and just looks down in horror. As of course, he is in front of a clothing shop where Akimura is. As Akimura is just looking around holding the Shinichi enchanted blade in a suit. No, that's just wrong. And he looks over, and of course, there's a traditional Japanese robe here. Of course, what Akimura would want to wear. And he sort of looks over it, and he's like, oh, you know what? I could go for that pretty much, right? But Samura's like, no, it's unmistakable. His voice, his smell, everything. There's no doubt in my mind. It's him. And we get 2 exclamation points to drive this fact home. As we now come back over to Akimura, as we now see the mannequin is stripped nude here in the moment, and we also see all of Yura's bloodied clothes, his pair of shoes, his folded pair of pants, his folded collared shirt, his folded tie. Man, Akimura is just a great dude. I think everybody just didn't know what he was back in the day. How can you say this man is evil, right? But we see that Akimura, now wearing the traditional robe, walks over to the glass windows overlooking Tokyo. And he reaches his hand out, and the glass shatters. As Samura looks in horror, and Chihiro looks up from the ground, immediately being able to tell, that's not Yura. As we just see that Akimura breaks through the glass, as narration reads, the man Kunishige Rokuhira trusted above all others, and entrusted with his greatest masterpiece, the Sword Master. As we get the first of 2 story panels in this chapter, where Akimura walks out of the building on the air, glass shatters behind him, and floating in front of him is the Shinichi enchanted blade, the Magotsumi, just sitting here in the moment, both of them floating in the air over the skies of Tokyo. Honestly, just an amazing and slightly crazy panel, but it definitely gets across the whole idea of Akimura is crazy, and we're just gonna have to see how bad things get pretty much, right? But as all of this happens, we see that Akimura looks over towards where Samura is, and he's like, hey, Samura, long time no see, man. As Samura sort of looks up, pauses for a second before he's like, oh, Akimura. As Akimura just looks at him, he's like, oh, man, your eyes, you healed them. Honestly, you look pretty cool, man. And of course, Samura has to look up here in a moment, and a lot of thoughts just start flooding through his head. He, of course, remembers whenever Yura was down the street talking with him and Chihiro before they really got started fighting. And Samura is just like, of course, Yura now knows about the whole idea that the Sword Master was in his right mind. We all knew that. All of the sword bearers confronted him. He was in full possession of his senses. The war had simply changed his beliefs. Nonetheless, the scholars deemed him insane. Of course, remembering whenever a doctor was talking about Akimura's condition before, and the doctor's just like, no ordinary man could have achieved such a feat like that. There's just no gobbly-gobbly way, you know what I'm saying? That's just strictly insane. As Samura sort of finishes the thought being, because there was no other way to explain the inordinate scale and force of the malediction. But we only knew it too well. Why he had been chosen to wield the Shinichi, The mental fortitude derived from his inane gifts and ironclad beliefs, the monumental power of the malediction, the fact that he survived 18 years in that space and remained perfectly lucid, and the way he hijacked Yura's body. All of these things are surprising, but also recognizable given what we know. Akemura Soga was peerless. As in the moment, Samura is just gripping Tobimune, his hands in the stance of the EI White Purity style, as he just thinks, we're close to where we started in the Battle of Yura. It was already mostly evacuated, and Shiba cleared out everybody else. As Akemura is just looking down from the very top of the building where he is, he's like, I was resigned to die down there. When they imprisoned me after the malediction, hey, I understood it. But it's unfortunate, but my existence in society's mainstream ethics are just incompatible. But somebody had to venture where no one else dared. And the day that I eradicated the enemy, I fulfilled my role, and that was enough. Or at least, so I thought. As of course, Yura at one point said that we needed a hero. And of course, who else is the hero but Akemura himself? As he grips the end of the enchanted blade and starts to pull it up. And Chihiro on the ground just sees this. And we get a sideways, full page spread as Akemura grabs the enchanted blade and just pulls it out of the sheath. And he declares the words, Magatsumi. And of course, this is an amazing panel here. Of course, the lettering as well, just the Maga and then Sumi. The M in the word is almost like dripping down and like falling to the ground. It's a very like interesting visual. And of course, in Japanese, the way it looked here of all of the like official like kanji and Japanese lettering and the way it was dripping out, it looked a whole lot cooler in my opinion. But also, I have to commend the lettering team on this series. I mean, who letters Kagurabachi? Let me go find her real quick. Lettering is by Phil, Christine, and they just do an absolutely amazing job because, like, it's hard to recreate this in the English language version, and I'm going to be real, I think they did a great job, of course, with the resources that they have available. But getting back to the chapter itself, Akemura is drawing the Magatsumi, and as he does, there's all of, like, what I assume to be, like, the black ichor coming out of the blade. As we see this black ichor also starts coming out of the building behind him. And everything just gets cloaked, this entire building, as it just, like, runs down like blood almost down the building itself. And I've got to say, like, what happened to Yura's clothes? They are so nice and folded. Like, is Yura ever going to get these clothes back? Like, what's wrong with him, pretty much, right? But as this building is getting coated, we finally see that Akemura removes the blade from its sheath. As he looks down to Samura, being like, hey, I have one question that I'm honestly struggling to understand. Why did my brother seal away the enchanted blades? And he looks down towards the ground, where Chihiro is standing there, inten in hand. And of course, Chihiro's sweating, like, this is the Swordmaster. This is Soga Akemura. As Akemura just sees, of course, Chihiro standing there, is like, so that's the answer. And of course, Samura's like, no, Chihiro, as he gets ready to run with the EI White Purity style, attack Soga. But before that can happen, we see a butterfly in the margin of the pages. As Akemura just declares, butterfly, as he swings the Shinuchi. And we get our story panel, but this one is sliced in half. It's honestly a very crazy and dynamic way to show this panel, as he is just standing there, Samura inside the building, and the building and Samura itself are just cut, bisected horizontally in this moment. And the entire building and everything behind it just gets absolutely eradicated. And Samura, oh no, what's happened to him? We don't even see him for the rest of this chapter. As Chihiro's like, no, Mr. Samura! As Akemura is right there, the Magatsumi touching against Chihiro's neck. As Akemura ends the chapter by being, oh, How you've grown, Chihiro. And Chihiro just looks back at Akimura, fright on his face. And that's where we end this chapter of Kagurabachi 105 on this, I'm going to be real, absolutely insane chapter going through the whole idea of like, okay, so Yura and Akimura switch places. Yura is now allegedly, where I'm guessing at least, that he is in the Swordmaster's clothes underneath the Kaminabe HQ. Is he ever getting out of there? I honestly don't know. Of course, chapter 110 has come out at the time I'm recording this video, so we know a little bit more about what's going on in the story, and honestly, we still have no idea about the answer to that particular question I still asked. But still, it's like, yeah, a little bit of a weird one. Like, what's going to happen with Yura here if, like, Akimura escapes and all of that? But this is getting very much ahead of myself. Akimura's characterization in this chapter is very interesting. Not only is he like, yeah, the people of Japan just wouldn't want me to be around to begin with. I get that. I'm the crazy one here. But still, it had to be done. And that's a little bit of like a scary thought there. And of course, it's like, he also folded up Yura's clothes to be like, yeah, I'm going to give him his clothes back if I ever, because, I mean, Akimura also said that he would be giving him his original body back. But is it like the cellular structure that like changes around, or is it like the vitality that affects who a person is? Like, wondering what power of the Magatsumi is allowing Akimura to do this, you know what I'm saying? But maybe we'll get that figured out at some point, because like Akimura did say, like, I'll give you your body back. Or maybe that was just a lie because Akimura is, well, arguably not a good person, but he did fold Yura's clothes. But then he, like, stained them in, like, blood or black ichor, so, like, gosh, I don't really know. And, of course, we have two story panels this time, and another, like, very standout panel, if not only Akimura coming out, eventually grabbing the blade and pulling it out, and, like, Magatsumi, and then slashing Samura with a brand new move in Butterfly. Of course, we saw the Butterfly before with, Kiora, but we actually haven't seen that ability be used, which means that we now know 4 abilities of the Magatsumi. Can I name all of them? We have Centipede, Dragonfly, Spider, and now Butterfly. And hey, I mean, I think all of those are cool. If we're going to rank them all, I mean, Spider is obviously the best power that the Magatsumi has. It is, I don't know why, I just love Spider-Man. But of course, I do love Spider-Man. Like, he's pretty cool, but I'm not really a Marvel or DC Comics guy, but I think Spider-Man's Marvel. Yes, he is. I don't know why I'm being so ignorant here in the moment. And then I think probably has to be Centipede. I'm going to go Butterfly next. We've only seen it once, but it's pretty cool. And we have another ability that gets revealed in a few later chapters. I say it's my 3rd favorite right now because I think it's pretty cool theming. But then Dragonfly, I just don't think Dragonfly is that cool of an ability. It's sort of like Makima's Bang from Chainsaw Man. And honestly, I'm not a really big fan of just like blow a hole in somebody like that. I want him to be sliced in half. More dynamic visuals, in my opinion, right? And yeah, Akimura is going to be talking with Chihiro next time. Apparently, Akimura does know of Chihiro's existence enough to be like, hey, how you've grown, Chihiro, and I'll be interested to see where it goes from here. How does Akimura talk to Chihiro? I've read the upcoming chapters, I know. What does he do about Inten? I've read the upcoming chapters, I already know. But yeah, I'll catch you guys next time for chapter number 106, I guess. If you did enjoy this video, well, I've been covering Kagurabachi since like chapter number 44. Those old videos are old. I don't feel like they're as good as my new ones, but sort of is what it is there. If you want to see my playlist with all my Kagurabachi videos in it and be like, hey, I wonder what Glowplasma taught about chapter number 83, there's a video on that on the channel you can go check out. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, leave me a comment. What did you think about this chapter of Kagurabachi? Did you think Akimura is a weird, quirky guy, or is Samura dead? Let me know. And with all of that being said, I will catch you guys next time for Kagurabachi chapter number 106. This is chapter number 105, titled, what was it, Transformation? Was it Transformation? It was Transformation. And I will catch you guys next time. This is Glowplasma, signing out.